This is CBN NewsWatch.
And it is Thursday, July 9th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, two major victories for religious freedom at the U.S. Supreme Court on the authority of religious institutions when it comes to hiring and firing. And the Little Sisters of the Poor finally win their long suit over the birth control mandate in Obamacare. New transcripts show George Floyd said, "I can't breathe," 20 times while a police officer's knee was on his neck, and Attorney General William Barr saying he believes Black Americans do often get different treatment by police than other people, as he also expresses concern over mail-in voting. An historically reliable election model predicts President Trump will be reelected this fall. So how should he handle the economy if he wins? And what's the biggest long-term threat to America? Not the coronavirus or racial tensions. We're going to tell you why some say it's China. We've got those stories and more in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We want to begin this half hour with two major victories for religious freedom at the U.S. Supreme Court. One on the birth control mandate in Obamacare, and the other whether religious institutions can make important decisions on hiring and firing. Heather Sells has our report on that ruling from the High Court.
Two California teachers sued their Catholic school employers for not renewing their contracts, alleging discrimination based on disability and age. 7 justices backed the schools, citing what's known as the ministerial exception. It is from a 2012 decision that says the Constitution prevents ministers from suing their churches for employment discrimination. This time, the justices applied that principle to teachers as well.
Essentially, they're saying the government has no business telling a Christian school, a church, a ministry whom you hire to teach and promulgate your faith. And so this is a strong victory for ministries and churches and schools everywhere.
The court explained when a school with a religious mission entrusts a teacher with the responsibility of educating and forming students in the faith, judicial intervention into disputes between the school and the teacher threatens the school's independence in a way that the First Amendment does not allow. Dissenting Justice Sonia Sotomayor argued the teachers taught primarily secular subjects, lacked substantial religious titles and training, and were not even required to be Catholic. Southern Baptist leader Russell Moore said this newly expanded ministerial exception sets a precedent for the lower courts.
We really do have a coherent philosophy articulated here that's rooted in the First Amendment, in the Constitution, in legislation such as the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So I think the constitutional policy here is very clear.
But questions remain because of an earlier case this session in which the court redefined sex discrimination to include sexual orientation and gender identity.
The court just went ahead and redefined sex, and that is going to create a secular sexual orthodoxy that religious institutions and religious individuals will probably have to litigate in the courts for many years to come.
The two wins for religious freedom could also boost the president's standing.
He can tout the fact that these were strong majority decisions, which means that he is in the mainstream of American thought, not just from a public standpoint, but even at the Supreme Court when it comes to these very important religious liberty issues.
But it's only July, and the big question will be what issues will be top of mind for voters come November. Heather Sells, CBN News.
And now look at that second major decision. After some 7 years of fighting the Supreme Court, the Little Sisters of the Poor won a major victory, and so do religious schools. Paul Strand reports now from the High Court on this second of the two major victories.
Two huge wins for religious liberty here at the court on one of the very last days of this term.
Significant victories on religious liberty today by a margin of 7-2. And so if anything, this should send a signal to the culture that we should all be protecting and valuing and cherishing religious liberty.
The religious rights legal group Beckett represented the Little Sisters of the Poor in their fight against the Obamacare mandate to violate their conscience and provide abortion-causing contraceptives through their health care plan.
We knew immediately that we could not comply. To do so would have been an irreconcilable contradiction of the belief that guides our ministry and life's work.
The Supreme Court has resoundingly declared that religious Americans are entitled to the full protection of the Constitution and of our laws.
I'm really bothered when I hear people say this is a victory for religious people, as though it's a defeat for non-religious people. This is a victory for all Americans, because the principle of religious freedom applies to everyone, and a government that's big enough to restrict religious freedom is a government that can do anything.
But Sheila Katz of the National Council of Jewish Women complained a person's ability to access birth control should not be dependent on the religious views of their employer or educational institution under the guise of religious freedom. The White House weighed in, stating, twice before in this ongoing saga, the Supreme Court has blocked these overly rigid and misguided efforts and sided with religious freedom. Today, it has once again vindicated the conscience rights of people of faith. But most court watchers believe this saga will add a chapter if the White House changes hands in November.
If a Democrat wins the White House in the next election, I absolutely expect these regulations to change, to go back to something more like the Obama administration's rules that will much more limit the ability of religious ministries to get exemptions from the contraception mandate.
So while the Little Sisters are celebrating for now, one day they may have to go through this again. Paul Strand, CBN News, the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court is set to issue another major ruling today on whether Congress and the Manhattan District Attorney can see President Trump's taxes and other financial records the president has tried to keep private. It is unclear how much of the material will become public, even if the president loses in this case. George Floyd told Minneapolis police officers he could not breathe more than 20 times in the moments before he died, while the officer who pressed his knee against Floyd's neck dismissed his pleas, saying it takes a heck of a lot of oxygen to talk. That is according to transcripts of the body camera video, which were released Wednesday. The transcripts provide the most detailed account yet of what happened when Floyd died in police custody back on May 25th. Attorney General William Barr says he believes Black Americans often get different treatment by police than other people. He made his remarks in an interview with ABC News.
You know, I do think that it is a widespread phenomenon that African American males particularly are treated with extra suspicion and maybe not given the benefit of the doubt.
The Attorney General went on to say he thinks it's wrong if people aren't respected appropriately and that it was something that needs to be addressed. But he opposes defunding the police. He also expressed worries about the possibility of problems with mail-in voting in the presidential election.
I was very concerned about the integrity of elections because I feel we're a very divided country. I think there's a lot of opportunity for mischief, and that makes me concerned.
ABC News said it called virtually every Secretary of State in the country, and none said they were concerned about mail-in voter fraud. But the president and some conservative political analysts do believe it could be a problem. President Trump is all but certain to be reelected. That is according to a political science professor who has developed a very accurate model. Stony Brook professor Helmut Norpoth told the website Mediate his model would have correctly predicted 25 of the last 27 elections. And it says the president has a 91% chance of being reelected. The model also indicates the president will win a bigger majority in the Electoral College this time than he did back in 2016. The professor said his model emphasizes how much enthusiasm candidates generate early in the nominating process and discounting polls. The professor pointed out many candidates have led in the polls in the spring but failed to reach victory in the fall. If the president is reelected, how should he handle the economy? On our Faith Nation program, CBN News asked that question of economist Stephen Moore.
You need to make the tax cuts permanent. You need to continue to expand trade in a way that benefits American workers. We probably are going to need to revamp our healthcare system in a way that provides everyone with care, but reduces the cost of a system that's not very efficient. I think we have to start doing something about the massive overspending in Washington. This year we're looking at a $4 to $5 trillion deficit in 1 year. We have to stop that spending. And I think Trump will do that in a second term. And I think his strongest line, I heard you earlier talking about this upcoming campaign, his strongest line to get reelected is simply to say, I rebuilt the economy once and I can do it again. And by the way, the polls show, even though Trump's polling numbers are not very good right now, the one question the American people really trust him on is the economy.
And Stephen Moore was a Trump campaign advisor in 2016. Coming up, while the numbers of coronavirus cases keep jumping higher and with the country also facing social unrest, the director of the FBI is warning the greatest long-term threat against America isn't coming from within, but from across the Pacific, China. We're going to take a look at the danger from China when we come back.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
The coronavirus outbreak, an economy that may still be fragile, and explosive social unrest. America is dealing with all three at once. But none of these is the greatest threat to our economic future. So what is? A superpower bully that wants to rule the world, China. Dale Hurd is on this story.
From cyber intrusion.
FBI Director Wray said the Chinese theft of American intellectual property is so vast, it's one of the greatest transfers of wealth in world history. Wray described an all-out assault on almost every sector of the American economy.
We've now reached the point where the FBI is opening a new China-related counterintelligence case about every 10 hours. China is engaged in a whole-of-state effort to become the world's only superpower by any means necessary.
Wray said half of all counterintelligence investigations now involve China, and China has stolen the personal data of most American adults. This as China seems to be trying to dominate an economically weak post-COVID-19 world through increasingly aggressive behavior. 20 Indian soldiers were killed last month in a surprise cross-border attack by the Chinese army. China is harassing its neighbors in the South China Sea, brazenly crushing democracy in Hong Kong and again threatening war with the United States. Asia has what some are calling a new bully, and China's expansionist ambitions are bringing it into conflict with many of its neighbors. China has ongoing border disputes with at least 8 nations, largely because it has claimed most of the international waters in the South China Sea for itself. It's even begun to demand land from Russia's Far East.
No country on China's periphery right now is safe from Chinese aggression. All those countries want a close relationship with the United States. We ought to have one.
China has now taken off the mask.
It is now open about its ambitions, and the world is rising up against it.
China expert Stephen Mosher, author of Bully of Asia, says China has managed to anger or frighten most of its neighbors.
China has accomplished in 6 months what it would have taken America 10 years to accomplish, that is, to forge an anti-Chinese alliance out of the different nations of the Asia-Pacific Rim. The Philippines is backing away from China. Taiwan is beefing up its military even more because they see that after what's happened to Hong Kong, they're next.
Regardless of its threats, Mosher says China does not want a shooting war with the United States.
What it wants to do is it wants to use this gray area between war and peace to continue its cyber attacks, to continue its espionage in the United States and other countries. But it certainly would use force in the future if it thought it had achieved a position of dominance.
But China's only real military ally is North Korea, and China's increasingly bad behavior on the world stage is isolating it even more. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, a look at why our country is facing so much racial tension and how things could turn worse before the presidential election. We're going to hear about that and the presidential ambitions of music superstar Kanye West right after this.
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
In recent weeks, we've witnessed protesters tearing down statues, little children gunned down in some major cities, the National Guard being called out to protect lives and property. Many wondering why this violence and tension is happening right now, and could race relations become worse before the November elections? On this week's episode of The Global Lane, our Gary Lane poses those questions to Turning Point USA spokesman Rob Smith, who also shared his views on Joe Biden and the Democrats and discussed the presidential ambitions of rapper and billionaire Kanye West.
I think it's the current political narrative that makes it seem like race relations have grown worse. It is very obvious that we're not living in the same world in terms of race relations that we did during the Civil Rights era. To even make that comparison is absolutely ridiculous. Now, what we do have is we have a lot of people that have a lot of vested interest in inflaming the racial tensions in this country because they think it helps them politically. Obviously, I'm talking about the left. I'm talking about Democrats. It is no mistake that we are seeing all of this strife in the streets. It is no mistake that now Black Lives Matter is on the tip of everybody's tongue during election year. Democrats think that this sort of racial division helps them. They think that calling Trump a racist, they think that, encouraging blacks to engage in this victimhood narrative, they think that it helps them because they are saddlebagged with a weak, unexciting candidate, and Joe Biden that nobody cares about. Nobody's really excited to go out and vote for him. So they have to gin people up and they have to inflame racial tensions in order to keep that 90% African-American Democrat voter base locked down. I think that's what we're seeing right now.
How threatened do you think the DNC feels about Trump's ability this November to surpass the 8% black voter support that he received in 2016?
Even outside of the Democrats being threatened by Trump and his ability to perhaps get a much larger percentage of the black vote in November, you have a lot of African Americans, even on the left, that are questioning what Democrats have actually done for black people. Why do these people think that they are so entitled to our vote? So that conversation is even happening on the left. You have entertainers. Diddy said something like the black vote is not for sale. You obviously Kanye West, who's just announced, I don't know how real this is, but that he's running for president. And he specifically says that I am tired of being made to feel like I have to be a Democrat just because I'm African American. So all of this strife that you're seeing in the streets right now, all of these racial hate crime hoaxes, all of this stuff is all about the left being an absolute fear that they may lose their stranglehold on the African American community with this administration and in this election. And it is sad to me that they will gin up such divisiveness because it benefits them politically.
You know, USA Today reports that young black voters are not that happy with Joe Biden. They may bolt, but does that mean they would go for Kanye West if he is serious about running for president?
I don't think that will happen at all, honestly. Number one, Kanye West can't even really get in the ballot in most states. So that's not really a real conversation. What is real is that younger black millennials are getting fed up with Democrats. And they look at Joe Biden, they look at this person who has been sitting in Washington for 40 years. They look at somebody who was one of the architects of the 1994 crime bill, which, jump-started this era of mass incarceration of particularly young African-American men. So they look at this candidate and they say, man, is this the best the Democrat Party has to offer? How is this person going to change anything when he's already been in office for 40 years? And like I said, I don't know if that means that these younger black voters are going to go to Kanye West or Trump or anybody else. But I think that there is an opening here for people that are on the right to target some of these voters and to really talk to them about real issues.
So what do you think is going to happen in the fall? Are we going to see more violence, more media sensationalism of racism and so forth, or is it going to calm down a bit?
I think we're definitely going to see more media sensationalism of racism. There's going to be more hate crime hoaxes. There's going to be more stuff in the street. This is being influenced by a lot of the left right now and a lot of the Democrats, because like I said, they think that this helps them. They think that if they can keep black people in this never ending permanent state of fear or disarray, it will help them get votes in November. So I don't know that any of this is going to change before November, unfortunately. We have to start coming together as Americans. And we as Americans, we need to start taking a really hard look at how the media sensationalizes and how the media attempts to divide, because the media is very complicit in all this stuff as well. It's not just the Democrat Party.
Yes, one race, the human race, one country, the United States of America. Rob Smith of Turning Point USA, your new book, Always a Soldier, comes out July 21st. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thanks so much for having me.
And you can hear more important issues on the Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern. You can find that on the CBN News Channel. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart. It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
It is time now for your Thursday Thankful, and I hope you will join me in this prayer of gratitude. Dear God, in this moment, your blessings are so much more than I can begin to name. Thank you. Those 2 words don't fully measure my gratitude, so again I say thank you. With that word, I encourage you to make today a thankful Thursday. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen today. You can email us at the address on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a thankful Thursday. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.